start the student panel. This portion is perhaps the main attraction of this afternoon's program. This panel hails from an impressive collection of Reach schools. You are here to hear their stories, their journey, their perspective, their thoughts. How did they do it? And what do I need to know so my kids can do it too? Right? Wrong. While these grads may present an impressive portfolio, please take from them what applies to your child and you. Broaden your mind to the possibilities that may present, rather than pigeonholing the journey through high school for merely the acceptance in an elite university. And I think that's kind of what Dr. Yadav is talking about. Please remember that college is not just the end product of high school, but rather the infancy of your adult life. And there are many roads that leads to one's life goals, especially in this country. We intend for this panel to help you get ideas, gain clarity, and some guidance to the path you may already be on. I'd like to invite the students to come up now. Their bio will be presented up on the screen. We won't be reading through all of that. Aditya Bave. Okay, how about there we go. Anastasia Onyango. Madhav Gatpande. Gina Kang. Vamsi Gade, Aparna Pateria, Mason Arbery, Chetan Yadav, Seema Gupta, Arjun Karnam, Grace Whittington, Nisarg Shah, Christine Yang, Bryson Rory, Brenna Salkin, and Kevin Huang. This panel discussion will be moderated by Dr. Aviva Legat. A few words about Dr. Legat. Founder and principal consultant at Vived Consulting, Dr. Legat is a college admissions expert, Ivy League professor, and Forbes contributor with experience on the undergraduate admissions committees of the Wharton School of University of Pennsylvania. At Wharton, she also spearheaded the leadership in the business world pre-college program and its signature Wharton Senior Capstone course. Dr. Legat's column in Forbes covers issues in higher education affecting students under 30 years old. Through her column, she has had the honor of interviewing U.S. leaders. Her expertise is featured in major publications including U.S. News and World Report, The New York Times, Reader's Digest, Business Insider, Poets and Quants, Forbes, and many more. Dr. Legat is also an internationally recognized professor in organizational dynamics at the University of Pennsylvania. Her courses hosted by University of Pennsylvania have been honored by Poets and Quants as Best Business Course. In Wharton's executive education program, she serves as a high-performance team facilitator and coach, helping executives improve collaboration skills.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the introduction, and I'm so privileged to be here in Atlanta. I am visiting from Philadelphia, and this is my first time here, so thank you for welcoming me to your wonderful city. Thank you to Vibha for hosting me. And really, these are the stars of the show today, because these young people have just gone through the college process. And as our MC said, this is really the first step that many students take towards adulthood. So it's a very difficult process, but adulthood isn't easy, right, parents? So it's always natural, I think, for parents to be stressed and for students to be stressed, because this is such an amazing time of transition for you. And I want to share on a personal note, I know you heard a little bit about my resume, is that I was a very stressed out high school student. And in fact, it's probably, the real reason that I'm doing what I'm doing today, because I was just obsessing about college as a high school student back in the early 2000s, and ended up getting pneumonia my senior year because of all the stress and really focusing too much on college. And so, I think there's really not one path to success, and what a lot of students say, and I would say, and actually there was just a study that came out about this, is that one of the regrets that students have about the college process is worrying too much. So when you saw all of these wonderful young people and their beautiful t-shirts with all these amazing schools on them, your hearts might have been racing a little bit, just thinking, I want to get to where they are. But I can tell you, there's really not one path to success, and I think it's natural that we would want to feature these colleges and really understand what these students did. But the truth is, what these students did to be successful are traits that they could use later on in life, and that you can use later on in life, whether you go to one of these colleges, whether you get a full scholarship, or whether your path takes a little bit of a different way. So that's a little bit about me and why I care about this wonderful topic of college admissions, and I'm so happy to talk with a student panel. We've got students here who, some of them have scholarships, some of them have already gone to college, and most of them I think are about to enter college. So first question I want to ask, and I've got many people here, so I'm going to try to skip around to different people on the panel so everyone can talk, is put up your hand if you can think of one first thing that you did to start preparing for college, and what age you were when you started preparing. Yeah. Go to Brianna first, and I hope there's another mic circulating.
So when I was in 3rd grade, I decided that I wanted to go to Harvard. Something I'm sure some of you can relate to. So I got out this journal and I looked at like the U.S. News report that had all the rankings and everything, and I wrote down all this information, and I still have that journal. Actually, went back and looked at it the other day. It has like tuition and like majors and all of that stuff. So it definitely, like, college was always a part of like my life and in the forefront of my educational process.
Well, what's one thing that you did to actually prepare other than journaling about the What's one thing you did, like not just dreaming and obsessing, like what's one thing that you actually took? What's an action step you took?
So I talked a lot. The middle school that I went to was really helpful that they did a panel, kind of like this one actually, of high school students and college students, and so I made sure that I reached out to all of those people, and I like actually pursued conversations with them about their college experience and what they liked and lessons that they learned, to make sure that I had some more personal experience and some like actual views of real students that I knew and I had known growing up, to kind of inform my experience when I went into the admissions process.
That's great, thank you. And you have to go first. Okay, and you brought up such a great point for this college process, which every student should take away as advice, which is that these are great schools, but this isn't the goal. Like, the school isn't the goal. The goal of the college process is for you young people to prepare to be an adult. So in the process of doing that, you're going to have to develop connections and talk to people who are really at these colleges, who have gone through the process, and learn from them. And as our MC said, some of the advice is going to be applicable to you, some of it isn't. But it's your job to really be a critical thinker around this process and not really just go for the name, but really understand what's at the college and how does that relate to me. So thank you for that. What's one concrete piece of advice? Oh, did you have something, Bryson?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that I truly remember doing was I was supposed to have started college applications in the summer, which I didn't do, and I procrastinated. And so it was like the first week of school, right? And it was a late night. I think that's where like I get my best thinking done. So it was like 2 a.m. I was just sitting on my bed listening to some music. Highly recommend. It like gets your energy going. And so I was just sitting there thinking, and I considered like everything I'd heard before about like, oh, look at all these like amazing schools, like, and all the advice I'd taken in, and I really thought that I wanted to do something different, and I wanted to forge my own path, which is something I would highly recommend. And so I thought about what I truly was passionate about, what I cared about, and what I wanted to get out of my life. And I think college isn't the end goal, like a lot of people have said. It's simply a stepping stone, right? And so think about what you want to get out of your college experience, and what type of school you truly want to go to. Like, don't just go to somewhere for the name brand. Go to somewhere that like makes you happy and makes you fulfilled as a person. And if you take the time to truly think about what makes you, what drives you every day, and what motivates you to do the things that you do, that's a great first step to truly thinking about like where you want to end up in terms of college.
Thanks, that's great advice. Yes.
Yeah, just to kind of reiterate what he said, I didn't start worrying about college till actually pretty late. I mean, I had a few in the back of my mind I wanted to go to. Everyone has their Ivy Leagues or whatever, but it wasn't until like 10th grade where at a college counseling meeting, I was like, oh, I actually should probably start thinking about this. But I think you need to be more worried about, the actual process, like we keep saying. Because if you're in the now and you're focused on how you're doing in school, what activities you're doing, are you doing what you're passionate about, the rest will kind of take care of itself. The schools will follow. So I just worry about, doing really well in school, meeting a lot of different people, doing a hobby that you love, and the rest will really follow.
Thank you, that's great advice. I'm going to move on to my next question, which is about academics. I'd say, students, parents out there, really concretely, the two places you focus on that I'm sure you know about are, academics, doing well in school, and then extracurriculars. So building up leadership experiences, really exploring your interests, and to your point, really getting to that motivation, what motivates you. And high school is one way that you use to figure that out by joining different clubs and taking on different responsibilities and so forth. So I'm curious to hear from the panel, how did you choose what classes that you took in high school? Did you follow a certain path, or did you do something a little bit different from what other people did? Do you have it? Yeah.
Yeah, so one thing that was mentioned previously was, really finding what you like to do, because what these colleges want to see is not that you have the best scores or that you have the best, that's all there, like you have to be academically competitive, but I think they want to see that you've taken your passion and whatever really motivates you, something that you're really interested in, to the highest level. And so that really was the motivator for me choosing my classes, was really centered around what I wanted to get out of high school, and same thing goes for my activities as well. I didn't really participate in things that I didn't find really personally interesting, and I really tried to narrow my activities down to the things that personally motivated me, the things that I wanted to do, and things that I wanted to get something out of, and taking that to the highest level, of course, and trying to get the most I can out of each different organization or each different class that I chose to be a part in.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else want to? Go ahead.
I go to the same school as Aditya. He's actually Val, just so you guys know. So there's a lot of pressure to take classes that will help you get a high class rank, which is totally cool. I also took classes that really suited my individual interests. Like in 10th grade, I took 2 German classes, even though it was actually not a boost to my class rank. I also took the International Baccalaureate Diploma program. It's a little different from AP, and it's actually weighted about the same in terms of college admissions, but it kind of gave me a more in-depth study of the liberal arts, and I got to write my own extended essay on a subject of my choosing. So I think when you're looking at these classes, your first thought should be, what benefits me? College comes naturally afterwards, but your first thought should be to follow your interests, and college will just come naturally.
Absolutely. So just because it's an AP doesn't mean you need to add it to your schedule, right? Yeah.
So I think we can see that being passionate about what classes you're taking is a common theme around here. Because if you're passionate about something, you're more likely to take time doing it, and then when you take that time, you're going to do better at it, and then you kind of find what you want to do later in life with that. And also, colleges want to see that you're challenging yourself, so just taking the easier classes isn't going to benefit you in the long run. They want to know that you're willing to put in the time and the effort to do the hard work, and you'll get results from that.
And one thing I'd say is that learning does not stop once you leave the classroom. Especially in high school, a lot of the classes can be kind of formulaic, kind of spread to everyone. And for me, in particular, one thing I really like is computer science. And so I'd say the majority of my computer science knowledge doesn't come from the APCS class I took in school. Most of it came from, working on projects with friends outside of school, finding courses online, going through midnight YouTube binges, and so on. And so if you're really interested in something, don't limit yourself to, oh, it isn't offered at school, so I'm not going to learn it. Take the initiative to go out and find resources outside of school. There's a bunch of platforms out there. There's things like Coursera, MIT OpenCourseWare, a bunch of places where you can go and learn about things you're truly passionate about, even if they're not offered in your own school.
Thank you. That's such great advice. And I think one of the wonderful things about being alive today is we do have so many ways to learn beyond the classroom. You don't have to limit yourself to that. You can take so many classes online. And Coursera, which is the platform you just mentioned, these classes are free if you're auditing them. If you want a certificate, there's a small fee that you can pay to get a certificate. But these courses are offered by top universities, including the ones represented here. And as you may have heard in my introduction, I actually teach a course on Coursera as well through University of Pennsylvania. So I think it's either a great way to get more in-depth into an interest, or if you have a new interest that you haven't explored yet, it's a great way to explore that if it's not offered at your high school.
I think that's something that can be kind of intimidating when thinking about classes or in high school in general is pressuring yourself to be passionate about something as soon as you get into high school, because I know a lot of people, including myself, are still kind of looking for what we really like, and like limiting yourself, I guess. I mean, like for a lot of people, they know exactly what they want to do, and that's great and all, but a lot of people kind of feel like restricted by saying like, I know in a lot of college essays, this is a lot of topics, and like when you're thinking about like applying to places and having to restrict yourself to a major, you might be thinking like, oh, all of my things all of my interests and all the classes I'm taking, all the extracurriculars that I've done throughout high school have to direct and showcase this one goal. And I mean, I don't necessarily agree. I think that a lot of people want like this big spike that helps them in getting somewhere, but in choosing classes and extracurriculars, it's really important that you can have a variety of interests, and there's nothing wrong with exploring things and being successful at things and failing at some things, and to learn what is best suited for you. And in high school, I guess that's the time where you're really learning about, what things that you could be interested, but don't be so pressured to like have an interest in mind, like pre-med or being a lawyer or whatever, because you never know what you might be really suited for in the future.
Thank you so much for raising that perspective, and I totally agree. And actually, I've been interviewing different leaders for my column in Forbes and for a book I'm writing about the pathway to success, and one of the themes that comes up is that finding a passion is a journey, it's not a destination. So you find something that you like to do, and then when you're no longer interested, you move on to something else. You don't have to box yourself into having a passion just for the college application, and you don't even have to find a passion to have a college application. But what you have to do, and I think what the language is a little bit different, finding a passion so to speak, is really about just being willing to immerse yourself in something. You might decide you don't like that thing and you want to do something completely different, but it's that willingness to go out there and to fail a little bit, because that's how you learn and that's how you further refine your interests and allow yourself that chance to adjust and change. And that's the story that colleges want to see. They want to see whole human beings who are engaging with their environment, with their community, with the things that they like, and that they're making thoughtful decisions. What they don't want to see as much, I would say, would be definitely a variety of interests, but not sort of like dipping a toe in the water in that interest and then just moving on to the next club or activity and not really getting involved in any meaningful way. So finding your passion, I would say, journey, not destination, and there are a lot of ways to get there.
Yeah, that was a really good point. It's hard to know your passion when you're only 15, 16 years old because you just haven't experienced that much yet. So just be very open-minded and try new experiences. For example, I was in ninth grade, I played a lot of tennis, I traveled a lot to tournaments and stuff like that, and then I broke my bone. So I was like, oh, what am I gonna do now? I didn't know what my fallback was gonna be, and I got into like filmmaking, which is something I never really saw myself doing, and debate. And I actually really enjoyed those. So just keep an open mind, look out for new opportunities. You never know what's going to interest you. So yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, in addition to everything that was said, for me, I would say keep a balance. Of course, colleges want something they want to see you're taking really hard classes, you're challenging yourself, but at the end of the day, you also need something that grounds you, something that you're really excited to go to school. So for me, I took like AP classes, but I also took things that I really wanted to take, like that I was really interested in, like. I took band all 4 years of high school. So my mom was like, why are you taking band? It's like an easy A. Like, college, you're going to look at that like you're just trying to skip out. But, I mean, it was an easy A, but at the end of the day, it also was something that, it was like kind of a break from, all the other classes that I felt like I was taking just because the AP also has, it was something that, I was really interested in and it was a passion of mine. And I also took other classes, like I took neuro and anatomy last year. And colleges also, in addition to just the hard class, they want to see something that makes you different, that you can kind of make yourself an individual, so something that you can talk about in your application, something that you actually can look passionate about, that really sets you apart. Then I took all these APs, IBs, whatever. You want to also have that balance of hard, but also things you're passionate of, and that's the main thing I would say. Just find a balance and make sure that you aren't just taking all these classes just because you think it will look good on the application.
Kind of like what Bryson just said, going off of that, don't be afraid if you're doing a lot of things and it feels like it's just going to be too hard, because sometimes that is kind of what makes you grow and it really helps you a lot. So I remember junior year, I was just doing a lot of activities and I felt super stretched then, and my coursework was really tough. But kind of that experience, having had that, really helped me senior year when I was also having to do a lot of those activities and apply to colleges. It just kind of gave me a baseline, and it helped me balance my schedule a lot better than a lot of my friends did, who just kind of like folded when all the work got tough. So I would say if you're going to do a lot of work, don't be afraid if it seems too challenging at first, but just stick with it for a little while. I mean, definitely don't try to kill yourself with doing 100 activities, but also at the same time, try to find that balance between pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and not spreading yourself too thin. So just, I would say the main point is you want to take yourself to a place where you hadn't expected yourself to be beforehand.
Mm-hmm. That's such great advice. Having a stretch experience in high school and persisting through that makes you, I think, a better person, a better leader, and then obviously the byproduct of that is it helps with college. So.
Another thing I would say on the topic of don't be afraid, I would also not be afraid of taking classes or participating in extracurriculars, but right now classes in which you have no experience or you are bad at. People, especially in this community, are told if you're not going to be good at something, what's the point? I say there's a huge point in participating in things that you are bad at because one, it humbles you a little, and second, it gives a lot more growth than just reaffirming your own skills. So for example, I was not a very good speaker, and just by accident, there was a scheduling issue, and I got put into a speech and forensics class. It was a public speaking sort of class. It would teach you how to speak impromptu, speak in front of an audience, and so on. And I was so bad at it, and after that class, it gave me a whole new perspective on, one, my own limitations, and two, how to grow from that experience. And I carried that experience through all the rest of my years in high school, and I'm really grateful that I got that opportunity by luck. And because of that, I have been more open to things that I am not so good at, and I've seen a more holistic growth in myself. So when choosing classes, if you're like, oh, I'm bad at economics, let me not take the advanced economics class, maybe don't take the advanced econ class, but take something so that you can actually grow from the experience and not just reaffirm your old skills.
Thank you, great advice.
Yeah, just going off the theme of like pursuing your passions, I think that a lot of things that if you're following your true passions in the course of high school, you inadvertently gain a lot of the skills and everything else that will in the long run help you not only just for college but for life in general. For example, in high school, I was involved in doing a lot of research for physics, and throughout the course of that, I had to learn to take initiative and like email professors who I was afraid weren't going to like reply to me or even like be interested in what I had in mind. So like in doing those skills and like taking leadership and really just following your own path and doing things that like aren't necessarily the things that everyone else in high school is doing, that inadvertently like gives you the skills and tools that you use when applying for college. So I just think that pursuing your own passions is going to be like key for being a successful student, not only when applying for college, but like when you're actually in the college too.
Thank you, that's great advice. And that's something I always advise my students to do if they have an academic interest or an extracurricular interest. You know, don't be afraid to reach out to the professor or to the administrator or even the admissions officer at a school you're interested in to get some insight, get some advice. And if you don't know who to contact, one way to look at academic interests, for example, is go to scholar.google.com. There you can search for any topic that you're interested in, and you can find different articles. So if you, the student, find an article and you see where the professor is teaching, you might be interested to contact that professor even if they were at a school that you hadn't even considered before. So definitely suggest looking at what kind of cutting-edge research there is out there in the areas you're interested in as a way to, number one, find colleges, and number two, build connections that help you to refine your goals and then, in turn, help you with choosing colleges.
Yeah, kind of going off of what a couple people have said, doing things in your passions is super, super important to keep you motivated, but I think that there's a real kind of pattern in high school, especially right now, of dividing students into STEM versus humanities students. And I think that can be really damaging in the long term for those students because I'm more of a humanities person, but I took AP Chem my senior year and I absolutely loved it. I've had a lot of fun in my math and science classes. And I know a lot of STEM students who also have a lot of fun and learn a lot and grow a lot in their humanities classes. So try not to box yourself in or pigeonhole yourself into a particular field or area this early in your life.
Yeah, and another thing I wanted to add was a lot of high schools, they seem like they restrict what kind of course load you can take. So a lot of the time they say you can't take a certain class if you're a sophomore or a junior. So don't be afraid to break through or to talk to your counselors and give them a little bit of resistance saying, I really want to take this class and that I'm passionate about this curriculum so you can forge your own journey to where you want to get to and not be restricted to just what the status quo is per se in your high school.
Thanks.
Just to go off of what was said about the STEM and humanities, I feel like this might be kind of going against the grain, speaking to a largely Indian parent audience. But I would say, like, mostly to the parents, you know, don't force your child to do engineering or like medicine or something like that. Like, please, I beg you. I was very fortunate in that my parents let me discover what I am very motivated to study and learn. And so, you know, learning about economics, philosophy, politics, things like that are like super important in society. And just like having the ability to go to school every day and take those classes, and not just like the AP Chem and AP Bio, but like indulge yourself in things like writing and like things that can fulfill you in different ways. I think that's super important. And through that, like you develop your mind and your critical thinking to where you have the ability to go anywhere in your life, and you can you don't encompass yourself in that box, and you have the ability to do things that you never thought you could have done before, and it just develops you in a more holistic manner.
Thank you for that. And that audience, I want to encourage you to start thinking of your questions. I also want to briefly poll you and ask you, how many here are in ninth grade or going into ninth grade, or who are parents of ninth graders? Anybody? Raise your hand. Okay. How about going into 10th grade or parents of 10th graders? How about parents of 11th graders or going into 11th grade? How about rising seniors and parents of rising seniors? All right, cool. So we got a really great mix here. So I think lots of practical advice on academics and also generally on finding your interests. I wanted to ask the panel, because I think as you're all sort of saying, I think making the most out of high school is really the way that you prepare for college, the way that you prepare for life. So I wanted to ask you just a casual question, which is maybe just to share, what was one favorite thing that you did in high school, whether academically or extracurricularly?
I think that my favorite thing that I was able to do throughout high school was definitely involve myself in my community, and I think that that's probably pretty similar for everyone here. Community service can start out as something in ninth grade that you just do with a club at your school, just getting you interested in doing something for your community. But what it really turns out and turns into as you advance throughout high school is something that keeps you grounded and helps you find your interests and your passions. So when I was a freshman, I volunteered a lot at animal shelters because I had animals at home, and that just seemed kind of like a logical place for me to go. As I went throughout high school, I became more involved in my environmental club and really wanting to help the environment. I started a recycling program at my school, and that translated into other things outside of my school as well. So I think that definitely for everyone here, finding something in your community that really interests you and finding a group of people that you love to serve and love to be a helping hand for is definitely something that can keep you grounded throughout high school, and also can be a little helpful in the college admissions process because you already know what you're interested in and you already have experience in that field or with that community to be able to back that up later.
Yeah, just quickly building off of the community service thing. I remember during my sophomore year, one of my senior friends was the head of some, it's called a middle school mentors kind of club. And so he would go to a local middle school with some other students, and he would kind of run like an aftercare program. And so one day he just decided to drag me along, and I don't know, I guess at first I was really skeptical and I didn't know what to expect, but I went and I found I really enjoyed it, and I had a lot of fun hanging out with those kids and mostly playing around with them, but also teaching them some things that maybe they wouldn't have learned otherwise. And from that experience, I think that opened me up a lot to just exploring different things in high school in general. I started signing up for classes that I had no idea if I had any interest in. Like one was called Ethics in Business. I didn't know if that would be interesting, but it turned out to be my favorite class, my favorite professor. And even in college interviews where they ask you to talk about your class, I always talk about that one because it was by far, in a way, my favorite high school class. So I definitely think just kind of opening yourself up, like we've all talked about, is very important.
Yes, so my favorite thing about high school is actually a class I took my junior and senior year, and it was an AP capstone program. And so the first year, junior year, it was AP seminar, and that was kind of where we were engaging with a lot of like stimulus materials that College Board sent us, and we were asking each other a lot of questions, and it was really discussion-based. And then senior year, we were able to do a year-long research project of whatever we wanted to do. And I think in my experience, it was really neat because I had done a summer program in the middle of those 2 years. And at that summer program, we were discussing a lot about our identity in America and kind of like who we want to impact. And so it was as though seminar had kind of equipped me with like the thinking or the mentality of how to approach the world. And then after the summer program, I was able to come into senior year with an idea of like who I wanted to impact. And so I did a research project that looked at how school choice affects the Black experience in a majority white school. And so what I learned from that is I want to go into healthcare, but broadly I want to help disenfranchised populations. And so the capstone program for me kind of helped solidify my quest in that. And so I would encourage anyone here to take a lot of more discussion-based classes, or if you don't have that kind of opportunity, maybe form your own kind of like cohort of students who like to consider like what is there out there in the world, and kind of like what within your own field or discipline that you want to engage, like what is there for you to do.
Thanks. I love that idea of creating an opportunity where there was none. I think that's similar to the Coursera. If you can't find the opportunity academically, go out and find it. If you can't find the extracurricular opportunity or academic opportunity you need, go out there and create it.
I was able to travel internationally a few times in high school, and that was something that was really like just a great experience for me. It was just unparalleled experience. Like you just go out of the country and you see different things, it opens your mind, and especially at school, you meet new people that you see every day, but you learn about them just in ways you couldn't in a normal classroom, and teachers, and it's just something that I would really just say you should try to do. I know it's not at every high school, and there's not so many opportunities, but if you can, that's something I would, especially not if it's not on your own dime, just being able to go out, no matter where it is, to learn about different culture, learn about yourself more. That's something that I really enjoy. Like I went to Guatemala my junior year. My school has something called Jan term, so we like take 3 weeks out the second semester. We have one class that we focus on, and I was able to get into the Guatemala class, and we went there for a week. We learned about it for a couple of weeks preparing, and then we built houses and we traveled around this one area, and it was just a great experience. People that I would never have met before in my school, we become great friends, and it was just something that, I can't imagine like not doing, and I would say there's so many opportunities like that you might be able to find that just change you and the way you see the world. So I would definitely say do that somehow.
Okay, so going into high school, I was receiving a lot of classical piano training. I was doing a lot of math, which, speaking to an audience of a lot of Asian parents, a lot of parents expect, my kid's gonna be a great classical pianist, and they're gonna be amazing at research and stuff. So I was kind of on that track. But then in 9th grade, I took my first German class. And, I would go home and tell my parents, hey, German is really cool. And they'd be like, cool, whatever. So then the next year I decided I would take 2 German classes, and I got a leadership position in our still very small German club because I felt comfortable doing it. So small things at first. And I started getting involved in our community initiatives, like planning cultural events. That was something I'd never done before. And getting roles where I would have to do public speaking. And like you talked about, I eventually worked myself up to get a scholarship with the help of my German teacher in our school's program. A travel abroad scholarship for 3 weeks, where I stayed with the host family in Germany with a bunch of other Americans, learned about the culture. And so this thing that started out as just one of my routine classes in 9th grade grew to become my all-consuming passion. And so when I applied to Yale, I marked that as one of my German languages as one of my interested majors, and I wrote my giant Common App essay about it, and also one of my other supplements about it. And I also got a recommendation from my German teacher. So this became like 70% of my application. And then my admissions officer actually, he sent me a letter with a small handwritten note, and he was like, it's so cool hearing about your interest for German. I thought it was pretty cool. So yeah, if your kid is deciding to pursue some new and unconventional interests, I think you should encourage them and let it happen, because these opportunities will just surprise you sometimes with what they can bring.
Thank you. Great advice.
I think my favorite part of high school was starting my own club. And I think it's important to show on your Common App that you have had some leadership role. It could be anything, but it have it be something. And I started this, I think, sophomore, junior year, and it is the same 10 people that show up every week. So it was hard to, it's the history club. And I would talk every week. I would give some presentation, or we would watch a movie. But I think probably the most important thing I got out of that was, how to lead. And it gave me a lot of kind of real life experience. I was pulling in speakers from all over. I was trying to get teachers to come, trying to get people to see your vision and come to the club and encourage others. So I think that not only is good for your Common App essay showing that you have had some leadership role, but also it's good for your personal growth because it teaches you a lot of qualities that you'll need later on in life when you have a job or when you're running something.
Thank you. So want to shift the conversation a little bit to your college process. And I'm thinking about the college tours. I know so many people will travel, all over the country, or for you perhaps all over the world with a Cambridge University incoming student, to figure out what college is right for them. So I'm curious to hear, what's one tour experience that really was memorable for you, and what advice do you have for the people out there on college tours? Yeah.
So the majority of colleges that I got into, I toured after I got in, and which I really don't recommend because for prospective parents, definitely it's a good idea before the senior year starts to find ways to tour a lot of the colleges that you may be interested in, because that may even impact whether or not you want to apply to those schools. So in March, actually in April, I toured Cornell University as I was accepted there too. And I had high hopes. I thought I was going to attend that institution, but then after that tour, it was a great place, but I just knew that it wasn't right for me, in the sense the campus was huge, the weather, it was really hard to get there, the accessibility from Georgia. I just knew that, I wouldn't fit in there, and that was kind of a deciding factor that made me choose Hopkins. And so I think that touring universities is very important because everyone wants to go to a great school, and there are a lot of great schools out there, but there are some that might not just be for you, and that I think was really important that I found out through my touring experience.
Going back to the very first question where she asked, what was your first decision, that you started the college process? For me, that was kind of touring colleges, because as a freshman and sophomore, every time someone would ask me about colleges, I would kind of just get all stressed and just try to change the subject to something else. After sophomore year, my parents kind of dragged me on some college tours, and that was just a really great way to see what different schools were like. So we toured lots of different types of schools, like small liberal arts schools. We toured large schools. We toured schools in the north and in the south, and pretty much, I would only want to apply to schools that I had visited or that I knew people who went there, and it just gives you a great basis for how the school will make you feel. And you obviously can tour schools once you get in, but for me it was really helpful just to, when I was writing about why I wanted to attend the school, to have visited it first. So I think it's just a great way. My recommendation is you want to start early visiting schools, and I would just say visit as many as you can and as many as it's in your budget, and just kind of get a wide variety to see what really interests you.
Yeah, that's great advice. And then you can narrow your list from there, right? Once you get a sense of what feels right and what doesn't.
So my story is kind of unconventional, kind of funny looking back on it, but I toured UNC Chapel Hill when I was a sophomore in high school. It was my first college tour, or maybe the second one, and I went into it with a terrible mindset. I was like, oh my god, I don't want to come here. And I was like, oh, why are my parents like just taking me on this, whatever, like I'll just sit through this and like walk through the tour and it'll be whatever. And so I walked through it, and UNC had actually just lost the national championship in basketball that year. And if any of you know Chapel Hill, UNC is a big basketball school, so that was very devastating. And the mood was very like depressed in a sense. And so kids were just like not happy that the day after my tour because we lost the national championship. And so I got back home and I was like, yeah, there's no way I'm applying to the school. Like, this is terrible. And as it turns out, like I reconsidered, and I visited again the spring of my senior year, and the atmosphere there was just like incredible. And I fell in love with the campus. I fell in love with the student body. Everything there was just like completely different. And so I would say don't just judge one campus tour based on like the day that you were having that day. Keep an open mind in the sense that you never know how you might change. If you tour school freshman year, like you're gonna change over the next 4 years of high school. And so just keep that in mind and have like an open mindset about everything that you do. And don't go into any situation with a closed mindset, because you really can grow and take in a lot of new things.
Thanks.
Yeah, one thing I'll say, well, tours are great, and if you have the opportunity to take them, sometimes they're not always an option. For example, when I was going through the college process, I only toured like UGA, Georgia Tech, and some schools in Texas because I went on vacation there. I didn't go to Stanford until I actually got in because, you know, it's a little out of the way. So one thing I would say is that the two main benefits, I'd say, of a tour are, one, getting to tour the campus, and getting to know the atmosphere and the vibe, and that's something you can really only get by going on tour. But another thing is getting to talk to actual students who go there, and that's something you can replicate outside of a tour scenario. You can contact schools. A lot of schools have these particular emails for student organizations where you can say, hey, I want to apply here. Can you put me in contact with a student who goes here so I can ask them some questions? And so you can get some parts of the college tour experience without actually going on it. And if you actually want to see the campus, a lot of schools have videos, have kind of these 3D virtual tours that you can go on as well, where you can basically go in and hear a student talk about the school, see all the programs they have. And so just because you can't physically go to a location shouldn't put you off from applying there, because there's a lot of resources out there for you to get to know the school without being there physically.
Thank you. I totally agree with that. And I would say it's very hard to get across the country for these tours. And in fact, I would say before you even commit to going on a tour, you should do some homework about all these colleges in the form of talking to current students like you suggested. You can email professors, as Kevin did. You can email alumni in your community who went to the college and talk with them. So you don't even necessarily have to go to campus to get that preview. You can even email people at the college and ask for a phone call. So there are so many possibilities, and I think college tours are, in their traditional form, where it's an admissions presentation and a walk around campus, they're designed to sell you on the college. So guess what? They're not going to really be very pertinent to your situation, and they're not really going to tell you some of the downsides of the college either. So I would say whatever college you plan on touring, do some homework in advance, really learn about the campus, and then decide if you want to make the visit before you apply or if you get in after you get in.
Yeah, so another thing outside of general college visits you can also do are fly-in programs, and usually they're offered for seniors for semester. I know I went to Columbia's, but UPenn also has one, Pomona has one. There's a lot of different colleges that offer free college visits for you to fly up and stay for a weekend or maybe a couple days in a weekday. And I found these really important in my college journey because I was able to feel what the campus is like in session, which is very different from what it's like in the summer or whenever you'd have time available. So I look into fly-ins, and then outside of that, going on the college website actually gives you a big feel of what the college kind of emphasizes, because just even like the font or like the layout of it or like what its landing page has tells you a lot of what they find important to themselves, and whatever the college finds important, you want it to kind of align with your interests. And so I think there's a lot of different ways for you to gauge the kind of feeling of the college. Another thing that I thought was a lot of fun was going on YouTube and Google, like searching different kind of like college tours or like a day in the life of this college student. So there are there are a lot of different ways for you to kind of engage with the college that you want to go to.
Thank you all. I'm going to ask one more question to the panel, but I want to invite audience members. I know there's a mic in the back. go to that mic in the middle of the auditorium where he's waving. If you want to ask a question, I'm going to ask a question to the panel, and then I want to take your questions out there. If nobody's out there, I still got more questions, but I hope to hear from you. So. And on the ranking, or not everyone has the luxury to do that, right? So really curious to hear your stories of getting scholarships, your experience applying to financial aid if you have that, and what that was like. So I know I've got a few folks there. Do you want to start first?
Yeah, I can start. So I got the Gates Scholarship a couple months ago, and that's a full ride scholarship from Bill Gates, and it was something, that was just unimaginable because, it just took us so much weight off your back, and it really just allowed, you not think about just like where am I applying, but also like who's giving me so much money, who's giving me this much money, giving this money, like you're trying to, look between it, and that kind of just erased that, that whole aspect. It's something, financial aid is something that's so, it's like just almost as big as, like picking a school and all that. So it's something you got to start early. I would say, as my advice, just apply as many scholarships as you can. Like, there's never too many, like, you can't apply enough scholarships, because Gates wasn't something I got early. I got notified that I got that in, like, April, I think. So for months, like, I had applied to, like, a lot of scholarships, and I didn't get most of those. Or I think Gates was the first one I got. So, like, I saw like, so many, like, rejections, like, oh, didn't get a scholarship, didn't get a scholarship. But, I just kept on applying, because my mom was like, well, we have to, like, find someone to pay this. And so I just kept on, saying to my college counselor, she, she got tired of, all the little sheets I was putting in. I had to pay like our like expected family contribution, because that's like a federal thing. So we still need help with that. So like another scholarship I got that was from a local Georgia one that was really easy to apply. That helped alleviate some of that. So there's so many different scholarships out there for not only just students across the country, but just for people like specific people, let's say people like in this county or people like that play this instrument in this area. There's so many different things that you can apply and like get funding for, that I would say, just apply as many as you can, because you want to cast your net as wide as you can, because, it is something that's really tough, something that's like so important when you're applying to college. So financial aid from your school, is important, outside scholarships, trying to, another scholarship basically, just from family and friends, make sure that, you were nice to everyone, because I got so many, so much gifts after, like, once I graduated. The graduation money was very good. So it was like its own scholarship like that. So you want to make sure you can maximize, like it's because you really gonna need the help, for whatever. There's so many hidden costs and so many things that you think that you are covered for, that you get there, you're just like, wow, like I have to pay this much for this and this and this. So just do all you can. Just like I said, cast your net as far as you can, because it's really, you're gonna need it.
Thanks, that's good advice. I want to ask you also if you have advice for people who are looking for scholarships. Where can they find them? Where did you find all of the applications you could do?
So, my mom, like I said, she was like really helpful in this process. She sent me like, while I was at school, like different classes, like she would send me a scholarship throughout the day. She was like, complete this, turn this in by the end of the week, blah, blah, blah. So she was like, really on me to like do different scholarships, but also, my college counselor, because she knew, she's like, I know you're gonna need help, I wanna help you. So she sent me different things, I did on my own. Like there's so many different websites, like that you can look up. You can just look up scholarships, and there's so many like websites that like just have lists of scholarships. I'm programs. I'm in like programs that they would send me things. So you can. It's easy to find some online, but also just people around you just ask. Whether it's a college counselor or teacher or whatever, or just students that like I know this guy here. Like I wonder if he has any scholarships. Like you just ask around. You can find some. Look online. There's so many scholarships, and you can easily find some, and you want to knock them out as quick as you can, because so you can just like apply to other ones, because you don't want to have to worry about you think you get into school and you're in, and you're like, all right, it's great. And you see the bill and you're like, well, I need help for this. And you, like, it might, you know, make it somewhere you like might have to come out. Like it's like you don't want to have that problem later. You want to just alleviate all that early on. So just look online, ask different people. There's so many different things you can do to find scholarships. You don't have to wait till last minute and make it a problem that it's really hard to fix.
Thanks, great advice. And for the parents and students out there, one of the search engines, I don't know if you use this, is fastweb.com. That's a good scholarship search engine. And College Greenlight, I think it's collegegreenlight.org, but it might be .com. You have a story as well.
Yeah, so I was actually very fortunate to receive the Moorhead Kane Scholarship at UNC, which is a full ride. So it covers basically like tuition, room and board, and they give you different stipends and things like that. But I think the most, just a quick plug for the scholarship, if any of you are interested in the school, is that they fully fund 4 summers of different activities. So I just came off of a 30-day mountaineering trip in the North Cascades in Washington, and that was probably the most fulfilling experience of my life. And experiences like that, so the first summer is outdoor leadership, the second is public service, so you get to go anywhere in the world and do a community service project that you really enjoy and have a passion for. The third is a non-governmental organization or something like that where you can do an internship. And then the fourth is the business world where you get a like fully paid internship and things like that. And so the scholarship and the community that it provides is truly incredible, and I would highly recommend reaching out. But I think the question was about the process. And so to get a little bit into that, for me, my school nominated me, so there's a nomination process. And so I went to Johns Creek High School, and I had to submit my resume to them, and then a panel of teachers selected me and another student to apply. And so I got the nomination that way. And then from that, I did like a whole nother application for the program. And so the Moorhead Kane is like a separate entity from UNC. And so they're a completely different organization, but they give you the scholarship for UNC. And so you have to do a completely different application for them. And I think that's pretty standard across a lot of different scholarships. And a lot of the merit ones especially, where you have to do a completely new, like almost like another college application for them. But it is definitely worth it. It got a little stressful in there a little bit, but highly recommend putting in the effort there. And so I did that, and then they have a group of people that go through all those paper applications and select semifinalists. And so they let you know that. And then if you're a semifinalist, then you do an online interview. So they have like a pre-selected series of 5 or 6 questions that they ask, and you respond to them in like 2 minutes each. So you do that, and then they have a group of people that look through all the videos and select finalists, and then they fly you out to North Carolina, and you attend UNC for 4 or 5 days, a long weekend there, and you do like 4 or 5 interviews there. A couple are short, and then 1 long panel interview. And they really just want to get to know you as a person. I think a lot of the stress that gets put on scholarships and college applications and things like that is like, oh, you have to hit like every single check mark or something like that. But it's truly not that case. They want to know what you're passionate about and what drove you in high school and how you want to change the world through the college and how you want to make an impact in other people's lives for the better. And so I think as long as you can communicate that, you should just like trust the process and know that everything will work out.
Thank you so much for that. Unfortunately, we're running a little short on time, so I just want to make sure we have a chance to get to some audience questions. Anyone from the audience have a question? Yes.
Hi, I have a question. As a parent whose child is going to high school and will be going to college, how do I stop being a helicopter parent and keeping on checking, is he doing the right thing? Is he applying to the right things, so what can I do to know this without interfering, and what can the student, my child, do to keep me in the loop?
I want to have the panel answer that question, but I also want to say we're going to have a parent panel after this. I think your question will definitely be well answered there. I'll just briefly say that I think parents are super helpful with things like sending scholarships, being there for students to organize their deadlines and things like that, and really just supporting that student in any way that that student needs. I don't think there's a set of tasks, and there's no manual for being a parent, right? Like, you're all a lot more experienced at this than I am, because my son's only 8 months old, so you know a lot more about parenting than I do. But you know, I really don't think there's a manual, right? So I think we just have to be there for our children and love them and support them in any way they need, and also, you know, encourage them and push them to the extent that we can. But students, what do you think about helicopter parenting? And maybe one of you wants to respond to that.
One thing I would say is that being hands-off is really good. I mean, it's obviously to an extent, but being hands-off is something I really appreciate, because I have a friend, somebody who I met going to Stanford, and so we were working on a project, this is more of an anecdote, a couple days ago. And so we were working on it all night. We started around like 8 o'clock, and it was going well into the night. And it was around 1:45 a.m., and then he was like, all right, can we wrap this up in 15 minutes or do it tomorrow? Because I gotta go. And I said to him, like, we've been working on this for like 5 hours. Why do you have to go now? He was like, oh, my parents had my internet shut off at 2 a.m. So I think that's an example of going a little bit too far and parents being a little bit too in their kids' lives. I think really being hands-off and letting your kids, like we've said before, explore their passions and kind of let them roam free and give them some wiggle room. I think that's something I really appreciated, and a lot of us appreciate it as well.
I think cutting the internet off at 2 a.m. is reasonable. I'll just go on a limb and say that because, all right, parents, yeah, okay, round of applause for that. No, just kidding. No, but seriously, I mean, there's all different parenting styles, but I think teenagers, right, they're looking to establish their independence. So I think if that like 2 a.m. internet time is like the only thing between like the house being in chaos or not, then like I guess you have to enable that, right? But you know, the reality is, to be healthy, students need to be getting sleep. So I think encouraging them to have good habits and good relationships with their electronic devices is always a good thing. So I will agree to disagree with you on that. Anyone else in the audience want to ask a question? We've got time for 2 or 3 more.
To the Miss wearing the Harvard shirt next to the gentleman in the hat, I wanted to, if you could be so kind to recall what the program was that allowed you to go to Columbia for a semester of your senior year, and also remind me like what are the highlights of that. I didn't quite catch that.
Okay, so the fly-in program I did, it's called Columbia CE2. All the fly-ins that are available, you kind of just have to, there's a website already that has all the fly-ins listed. Someone awesome did that for us. So I would just Google college fly-ins and there'll be a list. A lot of those are actually due early the semester, so August, September even, because a lot of fly-ins happen in October. So I would start looking into those and applying to them. One of the main benefits of the fly-in program I did at Columbia was that they emphasized that at their engineering school, they loved the phrase engineering for humanity, and that was something that really resonated with me because I understand that STEM and humanities aren't entirely independent, and I like engaging the intersection of the two. And so what I learned at this fly-in program is that college's kind of like interests really matched what I wanted to do with my life. So the fly-in programs that you do, or even any college visits that you go into, just kind of see what their motto is or what a lot of the students are passionate about, because from that you'll see if it's something that connects with you.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am.
Next question.
So like you guys said, you guys were really passionate throughout high school and did the things that you loved. But of course, like, while you're trying to pursue your passion, you must have encountered your fair share of difficulties, whether it be starting a club or getting rejected into a program. How did you keep your motivation? How did you remind yourself to keep pursuing that passion?
Somebody pass a microphone.
Okay. Yeah, there are going to be plenty of setbacks you'll encounter in high school. But I think the great thing is high school, there's so many opportunities out there that if you fail at something, you can always do something else, and you might discover that something else you like, even more than what you were doing before. So I think don't limit yourself to, oh, I failed, what am I going to do now? I have no fallback. Don't put all your marbles or eggs into one basket. Be diversified, have a lot of interest. That way you won't be so easily discouraged. And I think it's just really about don't think so much about the end goal of just getting into college. Just, it's important to realize, you're in high school, you're still a kid, so you're still really growing. So failure is just a part of the process. Failure is actually, it's a good thing. That's where, as cliche as it sounds, that's where you actually learn the most. Like in history club, for example, it was hard getting, encouraging students to keep coming, and so what I did was I just reached out to a lot more teachers, kind of really put the club out there on flyers, emails, etc. And that actually worked. And another example is, I played a lot of tennis. I got injured, but I discovered other interests that, I maybe never would have discovered if I didn't go through those, sets of injuries and failures. So don't be discouraged. That's all I'll say.
Thanks. Did you have a comment?
Oh, yeah. Just to build on what he said, failure is, a lot of people think it's a bad thing when, say, you're trying to do some research with professors, you email, say, 60 professors, and 58 of them don't reply. And you think that's a negative thing to you, but you have to use that as motivation, in a sense, to keep going on doing what you want to do. So, like, from my experience, that actually happened. I emailed quite a lot of professors for my research, and only one of them happened to reply, but I built a really good relationship with that professor, and I used motivation that all these other professors didn't want to help me out or work on my research project, but that one person who does believe in you is the one you can continue to go on and do great things with. So it really depends on how you handle it, and I know with my parents, when you fail, they just see it as completely negative, but you have to be able to push through that and understand what went wrong. If you can understand what went wrong, then you can truly succeed from that moment of failure.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I had a very similar experience. With the history club, I ran the philosophy club at my school. I was like the coolest kid, And when you are considering failure, you have to consider what is your metric by which you are judging that event and you're calling it a failure. So I was president junior and senior year, and junior year was a little hard. There were some meetings where only 2 or 3 people would show up, and part of me would say, oh my God, like what's going on? Are you not, this is a failure, you're not working hard enough. And I had to remind myself that a lot of the reason why I study philosophy is for myself. Other people coming is like a side benefit in this situation. Obviously, I want to help people learn philosophy. I want to learn philosophy with other people. I want to discuss with other people, but primarily philosophy is for my self-growth and for my enrichment. And if I abandoned the philosophy club at that point, it wouldn't have grown like it did in senior year, where a lot more people started coming. But I had to take that moment in junior year and tell myself, I'm doing philosophy for myself, I'm doing this for my own enrichment. It doesn't matter what other people think about it or what other people participate or don't participate in it. So if you think that something is a failure, I would encourage you to reevaluate and see what your basis is for that failure. If you find another way it is successful, then that provides you the motivation to continue no matter what.
Thank you so much. Next question.
This has been a favorite topic of mine for the last 2 years, AP courses. Is there an absolute minimum of APs that you guys recommend? My son is in 10th grade right now.
So I think the panel really emphasized earlier that students need to be taking classes along with their own path, along with their own interests. So not necessarily the number of APs, but really taking the courses strategically in a way that matches their interests and their ability to develop. In terms of the number of APs, I'll just speak from an admissions perspective. You want to look at your relative high school achievement and what the college goals are, and that will help you determine the number of APs.
No, I agree, but the problem is he's with fellow students who finish up their high school with 12 APs, 14 APs. So where does he stack up if he does 7 or 8 APs is my question. How does that comparison look when you guys apply to colleges?
I think really colleges do try to see the differences between different high schools. So if at one high school, normally people graduate with only just a couple of APs, they'll consider that. And for myself, I didn't take any APs freshman or sophomore year because that wasn't really the normal track for people at my school. But junior year, I took 4 APs, and that was quite a big jump, but the non-AP classes that I had been taking were still rigorous, and I was still felt prepared for them. So when I took the classes, I didn't think, oh, it's an AP. I'm taking this to show the colleges that I'm taking it. I just thought, all right, this is the highest level class that I think I'm prepared for. So I'd say that's just the metric that you should base what you take on, what classes you take on, is just whatever the highest level class is that you think you can really perform well in.
Thanks, that's great advice.
Thank you.
Next question.
I'm highly relieved. Good luck, guys.
Hi, I'm a rising freshman, and I'm planning on joining a few sports. I know in middle school, the sports programs aren't as rigorous, so there isn't as much of a time commitment. But as you get into high school, there's more of a time commitment associated with different sports. So my question is, have any of you participated in sports, and what is your advice on dealing with all the extra time and lack of time, I should say, that you have? Thank you.
I swam varsity for freshman and sophomore year. I kind of stopped at junior because I kind of started losing interest and wanted to focus more on other things. But yeah, it was a big time commitment for me, especially because the practices were in the morning. So I had to wake up at 5:30, 6 o'clock, head over to the swim center, and then swim before school. So I think it's just a measure of balance and determination. Like if you really want to excel at the sport in which you want to choose to do, whether whatever that may be, I think that you can still do it while managing your academic and extracurricular workload. But it's just a matter of what you want to get out of it. Like if you're really invested into the sport, and if you really want to take it to the highest level, and participate at the state level or the regional level, then you should do that. I think that's definitely something that colleges would admire about you. Then they would see that as despite managing such an intense academic workload, and despite doing all these things for the community and doing all these extracurriculars, he still managed to play a sport at the highest level. And I think that if you choose to do that, that's all the best to you. Like that would really help.
Yeah, to add to that, I think the harsh truth is colleges really don't care if you're playing a varsity sport unless you're good enough to play on their team. Or if you're, let's say, the captain of that team and you took it to a bunch of state championships, right? I wouldn't invest so much time into a sport and then, have the outcome be that, okay, I played varsity a few years, but that's all I can add to my resume. They really only care about that if you're going to contribute to their team. So I wouldn't have that unless you've been playing the sport all your life and you're really good at it and you think you see it going somewhere. Then I'd continue it for sure. Otherwise, it's good to get physical activity and play that sport, but I wouldn't have it unless you're fully committed. You're going to play at this school, or you have some dream at competing at a higher level. I wouldn't have it as your number one differentiator.
Thank you for all the questions out there. I just want to ask the panel one final question, and I'd like about 3 people to answer who haven't spoken in a while. So my question is, what's one piece of advice you want the students and families to take away?
So I think my biggest piece of advice, and it's something that I definitely learned the hard way during high school, is that yes, school is super important, and yes, your extracurriculars are super important, but personal growth, like outside of those things, like at the end of the day, you're still a person, like doing life, basically, and like trying to prepare for adulthood. So make sure that in the midst of all of this, you still take time to kind of have some like reflection time and have some fun and like have some experiences while you're young, and don't be so focused on the future that you miss out on experiences that you could be having now that you won't get a chance to later in life.
Thank you.
Yeah, kind of going off what she said, academics and extracurriculars are super important, but it's also important to enjoy your high school years. Those 4 years go by so quickly you don't even realize it. And it's important to go out with your friends, take time to do things that you enjoy, even if maybe your parents don't agree with what you want to do. Go to the concert, go out with your friends, stop studying so much. It's important to take advantage of the time that you have now because you'll never get it back.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't agree more with that point with how this is like your youth and not only about going to school and doing as best as you can. I mean, I know that's very important to a lot of people, and just like knowing what schools all of these other students are going to, and probably the people in the audience are very competitive schools that, you know, it feels like your whole life is school sometimes, and it can be very consuming, not only time consuming, but emotionally and mentally. But also going off of that, having regrets was a big thing. After like junior year, the first 2 years of high school, I feel like I like constantly thought about school, and I was always thinking about like, oh, how many AP classes should I be taking, how hard I should be studying for these things, what kind of scores I should be getting. And then at some point I realized, like, you know, high school isn't as big of a deal as I think we make it out to be in terms of academics. I mean, of course it's very important, and on paper, you know, it's a preparation for getting into college, but it's also a time of your life that you should focus on, you know, making the right or the most perfect decisions that you can make, because there's not, as a lot of people say, one pathway towards your success, and your success or your pathway towards success doesn't have to be completely rid of failure or anything like that. So if you don't do this one thing or you don't take that one class, it's not the end of the world, and you can still build a really meaningful and valuable experience out of high school without doing every perfect thing that you should have done.
Thank you so much to this wonderful panel. Thank you to all of you. Enjoy your day. So I think we have a parent panel coming up in a little while, right? And a little break. You want?
Hello, everyone. My name is Pranav, and I'm a rising junior at Princeton. I want to start off by congratulating all of the student panelists on their amazing achievements. I'm in awe of you guys, and I want to wish you all good luck in your future studies. I know you'll all kill it at college. Can we have another round of applause for them, please? I also want to thank all the Vibha volunteers who put in countless hours of work to make this event possible. Can we have a round of applause for them too, please? It's amazing to see how far this event has come. For those of you who don't know, this event started only 2 years ago. My dad and I noticed that a lot of parents would ask me questions about the college process and my high school career, so we decided to put together an event to help demystify this process, and at the same time benefit Vibha. Back then, the panel was just a group of me and my friends from high school, and we met in a local cafeteria to try and answer some parents' questions. I'm extremely happy to see that this event has grown so much, and that a simple idea that we had is able to do so much good for the community, all because of the tireless and selfless work of the Vibha volunteers and the support of community members like you. There's a reason we're all here today. There's a reason we all want to learn about how to maximize our chances of getting into these schools. It's because education truly is a life-changing force with the capability of vastly improving one's life for the better. Education is rightly prioritized very highly in Indian culture, because without it, it's very difficult to succeed in today's world. All of us are blessed to be able to pursue the opportunities ahead of us today, and the fact that either us or our kids go to great schools every day is something that we're all guilty of taking for granted. Many kids in India don't have that luxury. They can't worry about studying for the MSET because they have to figure out how to get dinner on the table. As we all know, education has the capacity to change lives, and what's sad is that many of these kids know that and would like nothing better than to go to school every day, but because of circumstances beyond their control, they're unable to do so. Vibha is an amazing organization that understands the fundamental importance of education and the capacity it has to improve lives. Today, all of these volunteers have put together an amazing event for all of you, and they've done it at no charge. Aside from today, as you know, They promote education by building schools in India, training teachers, and helping marginalized communities that would never get the opportunities they do without Vibha. On average, with the education infrastructure Vibha has already put in place, it only takes $17 a year to educate a child for a year who wouldn't otherwise have that opportunity. That's only 4 or 5 trips to Starbucks, or only 3 Chipotle burritos. Like I said earlier, there's a reason you're all here. You recognize the importance of education and its capacity to change lives. I hope that all of you guys can find the generosity within yourselves to make a relatively small sacrifice to give the gift of an education to a child who wouldn't otherwise have it for just 1 year, if not more, and honor the sacrifice of these amazing volunteers have made in putting together this event for you guys. Thank you for your time, everyone, and I wish you all luck with your respective journeys.
Hi, this is Narayana Rekapalle. I'm Pranav's dad nowadays. I would like to thank Dr. Jay Yadav for coming to this event and giving a keynote address. I really appreciate it, sir. Thank you very much. And I want to thank all the panel. Sorry we dragged you 3 hours for in this weekend. I'm sure it's well worth it. So many underprivileged kids are going to benefit out of this event. Thank you very much. And Dr. Aviva Lagat, Vibha really appreciates your time, ma'am. And she has flown all the way from Philadelphia just for this event. Let's give a big hand for her. Vibha is an amazing organization. We are really proud that we have excellent, very driven volunteers. And I want to thank all of them, and especially I want to thank 5 youth volunteers who really helped us in putting together this event. I want to read their names. Can you please stand up when I read your names, please? Rohan Edara. Please stand up. And he's the one built the website and maintained the website that you all registered. And you saw the nice photographs of all these experts and students. Thank you. Soumya Velanki, Kamal Korapati. Can you please stand up, please? So they helped us in a social media campaign and email campaign for this event. Thank you very much. Divya Vemulapalli and Malika Chimpuri. Can you please stand up, please? They helped in pretty much, everything. Even the setup, an email campaign, everything. Thank you very much. I know money is very important for an organization like Vibha. Today, I would like to contribute $5,000 to the cause of Vibha. My brother Muthi Rekapalli, who is not here right now, he is involved in another volunteer activity at Temple. He asked me to announce $1,000 contribution on his behalf to Vibha. I really appreciate all of you do whatever you can, either come and volunteer or contribute, whatever you can. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Now, I would like Dr. Jay Yadav to come onto the stage and give mementos to wonderful student panel.
Aditya Bave,
think that super glue won't fix. We're good.
Anastasia Onyango. Madhav Gatpande. Gina Kang. Vamsi Gade. Aparna Pateria. Mason Arbery. Chetan Yadav. Seema Gupta. Arjun Karnam. Grace Whittington. Nisarg Shah. Christine Yang.
Kevin is not here.
Bryson Rory. And Brenna Salkin. We have a few more recognitions to go through. Hang in there with us. There's still some good stuff coming. Sorry. Just as importantly, Dr. Aviva Lagat. This program would not be possible without the generous support of our sponsors. We invite them to be recognized with a token of our appreciation. Please come to the stage, Mayor Brown, Accept You. I think there's a representative for Accept You here. Oh, there you go. C2 Education, College Transitions, Fidelity Family Office Services, and School Linguist. Information about the services these sponsors can help you with is available out in the lobby area. We'll take a brief 15-minute stretch mingle break. During that time, you will see some parents with a lanyard with their names, recognizable names perhaps of these children. It's the parents of these children who have graciously opened themselves up to questions, one-on-one conversations that you might like to have with them. You're welcome to connect with them and talk about anything you would like. After that, we will have a parent-only session in the auditorium, and we have some other student mentors and parent volunteers who will discuss and help you navigate through this process as well. In that meantime, while the parent session is happening here, the students will be able to interact with some of these students outside in the lobby area and have more frank one-on-one conversations. So we invite you all to stay for that. These are also invaluable parts of this process. Thank you. Don't forget the QR code.
Welcome back, parents. Your kids will be fine. Our volunteers are out there. They will be having nice time with contacting all other students. So let's start our student mentor session. I'd like to welcome Sai Tej Guttikonda, Prashant Kumar, Ankita Das, Pranav Rekapalli, Pallavi Kankre, Anirudh Bigmal.
Good to see you again. My name is Vibha. I've been generously invited to sit on this parents panel. And I was formerly on the admissions committee of the Wharton School of University of Pennsylvania. So I'll be using some of my experiences from that. Had a career in higher education for over the last decade. Today I'm helping students with the college process one-on-one, and I'm writing a book about how there's not one path to success, and that young people can take a lot of different ways in order to really get to what their ultimate goals will be. So really happy to be here and glad to chat afterwards as well.
Hi, my name is Sai Tej Guttikonda, and I'm a rising sophomore at the University of Pennsylvania at Wharton School of Business. I went to Chattahoochee High School.
Hi, I'm Prashant Kumar. I'm about to be a sophomore at Harvard. I went to Pace Academy.
Hi, I'm Ankita Das. I'm a rising junior at Georgia Tech, and I went to Northview High School.
Hi, my name is Pranav Rekapalli. I'm a rising junior at Princeton, and I went to Westminster.
Hi, I'm Pallavi Kankre. I'm a rising sophomore at Cornell, and I went to Chattahoochee High School.
Hey everyone, my name is Anirudh Bigmal. I'm a rising junior at the University of Pennsylvania, and I went to South Forsyth High School.
So if you have any questions or anything to ask them, you can feel free to ask. There's a mic over there in the back.
No, we can use this one. So we
Okay,
can use this
yeah,
one. So if
we
you
have
raise your
volunteers
hand
over
and I'll
there.
come to you. If you have a question about anything from these okay.
Hi guys, my name is Vinod Kadadi. My son is going to 10th grade now. It's been a fabulous program so far. I really appreciate it. The question I have is, what role, if any, the outside college counseling teams might have played, in your college application process or your leading into the admission? Not your school counselors, but the outside counselors.
So I don't think anybody here had official outside counseling, but I went to C2 Education for standardized testing prep, but the manager of the location was invested in their students too, so she would try to round out their applications for them and kind of review it. I would say that outside experts do know what works because they've mentored students who've gone on to these great schools. But I would say don't let them stifle the creativity or the originality of your own student, because that'll end up hurting their application a lot more.
As an outside consultant, I'll just speak to that, and I'm not here to say you should get one. I think if you need one or not really depends on, you and your family. I think for some families, a college counselor is helpful when there might be, you could as a family be challenged between student and parent if there's a lot of tension there and you just need kind of a third person who is an expert to sort of give an arbitrary or nonpartisan, if you will, third opinion, then I think a college counselor can be really helpful. Some people use college counselors to kind of try to push the student in one direction, and that's not necessarily the best use of counseling. I think the motivation to apply to college and where they go really has to come from the student with research, with their own research and so forth. So I think the college counselor can help students with the research part. College counselors can help them pick out the essay topic. College counselors can help with essay editing and things like that. But I agree, you don't want to hire someone who's going to just stifle who your student is and, try to give them some angle or some story, because that's not really, what necessarily will work for them in the long term. So even if that works in the short term, it's really not, the right way to go about it, I would say.
I just wanted to add to that. I think that I'm sure it's very helpful for some things like essays and stuff like that, but outside college counselor also can hurt you, because when you're applying to these schools, you're also getting a counselor recommendation, or at least when my college counselor wrote one of my recommendations for me, and you never want to have like contradicting opinions in a way. And personally, I found that what was really helpful is getting to know my college counselor really well at school. And that way they're putting a piece of information that the college sees about you, and that's very helpful at the end of the day. Like you're getting to know someone who's actually putting input into your college process, whereas some people, or an outside college counselor, they may have their own mind, like what you're gonna do, and it might not be the best for you.
So before I started my essays or like choosing my extracurriculars or anything the summer before my senior year, I actually went to someone who was really helpful in helping me decide what college I should apply to, what colleges I should apply to. So like what options I had in state, what out-of-state colleges might be willing to offer scholarships, what might be the best fit for my personality. So in that case, college counselors are really helpful for me.
Okay. Next year.
Hey guys, I have two questions. The first question is, I don't know whether it's for you guys or the parent panel will answer that, but how effective is the Eagle Scout will be in the college application process? That's my first question. The second question is there any online website or any online resource to teach the parents what is the application process is about and how the GPA is calculated, what is the expected GPA of some colleges and something like that? Is there any online resource or website available for the parents? So these are the two questions, if you can answer.
So I guess for the first question, I can take that. I don't know that any one of us can say like specifically how one specific activity, like for example, being an Eagle Scout, might affect your chances of getting into a college or not. Like obviously being an Eagle Scout is a very good thing. It shows like determination and hard work. And I'm sure it'll definitely support your application. And it's definitely a good thing to have. But I'm not sure that we can say that like for sure like it'll make or break your application. As far as your second question, I think you asked, is there a website we can find statistics on for like average scores of schools? I'm sure if you just Google for any school, like average SAT score, average GPA of students getting in, you can easily find that. I'm not sure if you guys have other suggestions.
I'd say generally steer away from College Confidential, because they're always asking like, what are my chances? And it's usually like the highest tier students too. So like, tell your kids to stay away from that, because that can cause so many nightmares. Like plenty of people at school are like, oh, this guy on this blog is saying he has like a perfect SAT score, perfect GPA, blah, blah, blah. And like, you never want to like have your kid compare himself to another kid. And that's,
This is just my personal opinion, but more than websites, because there's a lot of information out there, I would just talk to your family, friends of like parents who have had children go through the process and who are successful at it, because you'll get much more like valuable and direct information from that. But like Anirudh was saying, if you're just looking for stats or how the process works, there's many credible websites for that.
And I would say I agree with everything that's been said, and I would say if your school has Naviance and they have a view of the scattergrams and the GPA and tests, that's the most realistic benchmark for you personally as you're applying to college, because the majority of the time, the colleges will look at you in the context of your high school. So it's not about comparing yourself to kind of a universal standard, but what's been typical of your high school, and also what's been the rate of college going to any particular college from your high school versus another college. So all important things to look at, but definitely not the driving factor. Really, the driving factor should be that motivation of where will be the best fit for you and your child.
Yeah. My name is Shashank Neukar, and my first question was almost similar to this, like how important is volunteering in high school, like going to church or doing community volunteering in admission process for all these great colleges. And second question is, now since you have been in college for 1 year, do you miss your parents being around, or they are not there? Like, do you feel like it's a good thing or not good thing?
Okay, well, for your first question, I can definitely say, like, for me personally, volunteering really helped me in the college process because in your college applications, more than, I mean, of course, your academics are really important, your extracurriculars are really important, but more than anything, they want to see something you're passionate in. They want to see your personality, and they want to see that, does this student have passion, enough passion to be a part of this college? And so for me, volunteering was a really important driving factor in a lot of my applications, a lot of my essays. I showed not only that, like, I had the commitment to volunteer at a certain place every day, it was like a personal connection that I had. So if your child shows that volunteering and like shows like, oh, I go to this certain organization and I contribute in a really important way, and if they get through that in their applications, then I think that's really important. As for the second question, I can't really see that much because I go to Georgia Tech, so I come home every other weekend, but someone else can answer.
So I go to college in upstate New York, and my parents are my best friends, and I honestly don't miss them at all. I like, basically, the college I go to is like such a good fit for me that I'm engaged almost every second of every day, and I call my parents once a week. I think they miss me a lot, but I don't think you have to worry about your kid being super homesick or anything like that.
Hey guys, thanks for taking the time out. This has been a great event thus far. Can a couple of you talk about the strategies that you deployed in terms of targeting which schools to apply for, and how did you go about that?
So every school, I would say, has like a fit to it, even among like all these like elite schools or top schools that people are targeting. And I think you can speak to this more, but when like admissions officers are reading your application, they also want to like round out their own class and see how good of a fit you'd be with them. One thing I would say to do is find out like what the school is about. Like talk to people who are at the school right now who have graduated, like find out about their social life, their traditions, their culture, what kind of connections you can make. And I would say in the schools where, like in the Common App section where it's like, why this school, try to incorporate that stuff into it and see, like, say that you could see yourself living through those experiences.
I would say don't be afraid to use financial factors as a factor for your college decisions. I think parents understandably want the best for their child, and it's not always like the shiny school that's going to be the best for you and for your family. The reality is a lot of people have to take on a lot of debt and really suffer hardships, whether it's delaying retirement or having their children start out after college with debt. So I would say definitely if that would apply to you, that you should definitely take that into high consideration. I know you have some great scholarship programs here in Georgia, so I would encourage you to highly consider that. And beyond that, I would say looking at the academic factors. If you're someone or your student is someone who isn't sure about what they want to do and they haven't, quote, found that passion or developed that intense focus, I would definitely encourage you to look at liberal arts colleges first over research universities, because liberal arts colleges are more focused on undergraduate education as a matter of mission than our research universities. Research universities are places that are focused on producing research. So their first focus is graduate education, faculty, grants and awards. Not to say they don't also have a great undergraduate experience, but you're not going to get the same kind of advisor to student ratio. You're not going to get as much personalized attention. It's not going to be as tailored of an experience. So I would say if you find yourself, as your student finds themselves in the category of, I'm not sure what to do, there are many different ways that could go, I would really encourage you and they to look at liberal arts colleges.
We'll have to limit our next question to the last question.
So we'll have two more questions because there are already people.
No problem.
So last but one.
Is there any recommendation on the early action, early decision? Can you give some guidance how we can approach?
Every school is there's differences. So I know Penn, I don't know about Princeton, or I think Cornell has ED. So some schools have early decision where it's binding, and then some schools have early action, like Tech has early action, and like Harvard, and I think Princeton too has early restrictive action. So early decision is, I love it, I'm going there for sure if I get in. And I mean, it speaks for itself. Like, you're putting yourself and saying, like, to the school, this is the best thing for me, and I know I want to be there. And schools honestly want to keep their retention rate as high as possible too. So they're going to take more people in the early decision pool because they know they're coming. As for early restrictive action, I wasn't sure where I wanted to go for sure. And so I applied early restrictive action to Harvard. And it shows a little more like you're interested in it, but you're not binding yourself. So it's not like that much of a difference in a sense. And early action is I'm interested, but I'm not going to bind myself to it. I'm just showing my interest. And so if you love the school, early decision is the way to go. But if you're like me or most people, like, don't bind yourself to a school, like, straight up.
And one more thing I'd say, there's like, people say there's an advantage with early restrictive action, and there might be, but if your application is not ready yet, don't try to force it in early, because the bump in the early restrictive action only comes from the fact that those applicants are already super qualified and they're applying to that one school they want to go to. So like, there is an advantage, but not that much of an advantage. You're just expressing your interest early.
And I'll just add to what both these gentlemen said, which was all correct, which is to say that, you know, the schools are filling their classes, so they're also going to be giving a really strong look to people who are in early decision. They're going to be reading the applications much more thoroughly. You may have read this and you may know this, that you really have 4 to 8 minutes to stand out. And that time is even less with the regular decision versus the early round. So definitely only apply if you want to go there. You will get a closer read. And just make sure that it's the right fit for you and that it's a realistic early choice, because you don't want to use that kind of option thinking, well, it'll increase my chances, and then you're missing out on the right school to apply to. So I would say really take into account all the factors we talked about earlier in order to use that choice really strategically.
I actually would seriously recommend applying places early decision, because I applied to 17 schools and just to cover all my bases, and it was incredibly hard on me, and it was really stressful. And if I could do the whole process over again, I would just figure out my life, figure out what school I really love, and apply early decision. I also applied early action to a school, and early action does not give your application the boost that early decision does, I think, when it gets to like these really selective schools. So I would highly recommend early decision.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for this. My question was, is there such a thing as a trend for certain high schools to apply more to certain colleges? And is there such a thing as a quota system that, let's say, a certain high school can only have X number of students in a certain university?
Yes, absolutely. The high school trend matters to the college, because the college, whatever college it is, they have certain relationships with certain high schools and they don't have a relationship with other high schools. So there's certainly a trend, and you'll see roughly the same number of students or a very comparable number of students getting admitted, but it's not like a quota. But that, you know, in that admissions decision, the admissions decision isn't just about the student applying. I mean, yes, all of these students are amazing, as are so many other people applying, but there are all these other factors that are involved other than just the student, and a lot of it has to do with the relationships. And so the relationship between the high school and college is very important, but don't be afraid to apply if they took 2 students this year and you know of 2 people who are applying who you feel are more qualified, which is of course an arbitrary judgment on anyone's part. But I would say don't worry about the quota, but definitely look at the history just to make sure that there is a history.
I'd like to invite Gopal Koratana to recognize our student panel. Saitej Gutikonda. Prashant Kumar. Ankita Das. Pranav Rekapalli. Pallavi Kankare. Anirudh Bigmal.